How to deal with idiots. I focused on this topic and seriously thought about how can we deal with idiots, the creatures who ruin your work for no reason, even when it gives them no advantage. These are the people who don't flush a public toilet or park a gas car in an electric charging spot. What should we do with these people? I did some research online and read a book about it and combined it all for this video. First, it is very hard to define stupidity. That's because you can't stop being seen as stupid by someone else. Let me explain. One person calls a guy stupid for a bad action. Another person calls the same guy stupid for a different action. This shows that everyone decides who is stupid based on their own judgment. You are stupid because you did this wrong. This makes the problem more confusing because we can't find the real stupid person. You did something bad or wrong, but what makes something wrong or bad? It's different for everyone, based on their past experiences. So, who is the idiot? We know they are out there, right? We can get an idea by using a simple method, statistics. It's not a perfect method, but it can help. If 10 people call a guy an idiot because of a specific action, maybe we can decide he is an idiot. This is because all those people think the same about one thing. There is a link. This method ignores that those 10 people might also be idiots. Maybe the one guy is actually smart, right? So maybe stupidity doesn't actually exist, but it is not a fixed thing and depends entirely on a personal point of view. However, an objective definition of stupidity doesn't exist on its own. It is a mix of all these personal definitions. Objectivity is found where all these personal opinions meet. In other words, just because stupidity is relative doesn't stop us from saying that it's real. It is very confusing, but I will explain it simply. We can reach one specific idea. We are always someone else's idiot. This cannot be changed. So we can assume that in the past, present or future, there will always be idiots. Stupidity is a cycle. Our attempts to stop stupidity are limited. The rules we create against it will depend on many different things. And even if it's just one person, someone will still call another person an idiot. For this reason, fools will always exist. We will always run into them. They have always existed throughout history and will continue to exist. The ways people can be stupid are endless, and stupidity is in fact failure. Failure? Is stupidity a failure? What is the definition of stupid? By definition, stupidity is opposite of being clever. So if you are stupid, you cannot be clever. And if you are clever, you cannot be stupid. We can be clever by stopping our dumb behavior. At the end of that journey, we get the one idea. Stupidity must be destroyed. Just like the Latin phrase Titia delenda est. Stupidity, absolutely or as much as possible, must be destroyed. What about the stupid people? The real stupid people, like those we meet every day, at work, people we live with, our partners, our friends, and even those friends and partners who one day show us their ugly side. Who can say all stupid people must be destroyed? No one, and this can't be taken seriously. So we must accept this without wasting time. We will always fight against fools without a doubt. They have a very special resistance mechanism. They go against us when we try to fix things, even things that would help them. They try to drown your arguments with a simple thought, meet your good intentions with threats, and your kindness with violence. They openly go against the common good with a blindness that even hurts their own interests. To put it simply, we must admit that fools are stubborn. This quality makes it impossible to find even the simplest solution from the start. For this reason, it is useless to explain a solution to them. They don't want to understand. Using big words makes people feel good, but stupidity uses this feeling to wear down its opponents, trap them, and stop them from understanding. That's why it is impossible to compromise with fools, because they don't want to. We have to learn how to act in this situation. After we know they will never go away and that their existence is even necessary, how can we behave? Actually, there is no answer. And if there was a person who had an answer, he would probably be working with fools. But let's take a look at what we can do. We can easily define stupidity, but understanding a stupid person is hard. Here I want to give a third point of view. From the point of view of pure reason, there are no fools. A wise person, when looking at the world, cannot see stupid people with their great wisdom. They can see the reasons why people act, and the stupid don't appear on their radar. Some stupid people reject everything and are even skeptical about truth, while others don't care about anything, including disasters that could be prevented. Stupidity varies a lot, and it's not possible to study all of it. Does this mean we can't talk about all stupid at the same time? Maybe one solution is put them into types or groups. If we classify all stupid people, we can understand them. But there is one important point here. If we classify all stupid people, we will start to believe that what we run into are not situations, but fools. This relief will make you lose your perspective of reason and goodness. I will explain simply and in detail in next. So, classifying all stupid people is not a good way. I think we shouldn't have a specific definition of idiots. Let's let them have their own stupidity. So far we need to understand we will always be the fool of others. There are endless types of stupidity, and the real stupid person is inside us. Now let's look at one idea. Because of a bad behavior, we call a person stupid, seeing ourselves as better than stupidity. Then, when someone acts wrongly, uselessly or dangerously, we should be able to use our own high moral standing and act easily and without anger to fix the situation and prevent the harm the fool would do. But doesn't happen. Why? Because weakness and low morals don't explain everything. We need to do a second evolution. Stupidity is not only weakness, but ugliness. Calling someone stupid doesn't make us stronger. It weakens us, taking away our strength and leaving only frustration and humiliation. We know we are better than the rude person who doesn't flush a public toilet, or the one who thinks he can do anything because he has money. But our value isn't enough to beat their stupidity. No matter what we do, we hate them. Let's imagine we gather around a fool or a troublemaker who makes our lives miserable, and we all agree that she is worse than us. The moment she starts to disgust us, we lose our ability to feel for her, to empathize. As we see a fool as a fool, we lose the godness within ourselves, move away from our own human ideals, and become someone just as hateful. That is, a fool ourselves. This is proof that we have become the fool of a fool. This situation also harms the observer, the person who is watching. This means it is impossible to simply witness stupidity. By calling someone stupid, we take a stand against them. This inability to be objective doesn't leave you alone. Your judgment immediately reduces your possible love and tolerance for this stupid person. The person who calls someone a fool is also becoming a fool, because it shows that he has lost his calm and his ability to think clearly. The more you try to stay away from fools, the more you help one of them to grow inside you. How can you break that cycle? Or is it possible? As we read everywhere, responding to hate with love, forgiving insults, putting ourselves in the shoes of others, in short, smiling at those animals that get on our nerves, can be the solution, because only generosity can help us and then reach a better level of humanity. But this idea has a problem. It may seem both logically and practically crazy, and as difficult as it is, you'll find it strange to wink at a fool who belittles you, or smile at a fool who knowingly hurts your work. Where can one find the extra strength needed to resist stupidity? Because it has the power to weaken your moral strength. Of course, stupidity by definition hurts us, and those who do it often hurt themselves. But that doesn't mean stupidity is necessarily bad. It's the effect of anger and exaggeration that play here. In reality, doing evil and being evil are two different things, which we've confused with panic until now. Idiots perform poorly. This is the judgment we make with our minds, and they also hurt us. This is the emotional definition of our relationship with idiots. But based on these two things, we can't call idiots the image of absolute and universal evil. But that's probably what you are thinking. We must admit that our personal pain makes us leave a balanced point of view and leads us to final and unconditional judgment. In fact, we are claiming that the relative reality is an absolute, putting ourselves in the place of a judge of the universe. This is a characteristic of a fool who sees himself as a god and thinks his own opinion is absolute. Why advice fell against stupidity? You have surely understood the importance of seeing that the idea of evil is relative in daily life, a logical process that stops the emotional cycle. You've accepted that stupidity is not evil but simply suffering. This is where you will struggle. Instead of focusing your attention elsewhere, you should see stupidity not as a waste of your time, patience, composure, self-confidence, and the joy of living, but as a chance to discover your passion, composure, and the joy of living. Emotion stops you from making smart decisions. This effect is a main part of your disgust that stops you from even talking fools. Constantly makes you focus on their stupidity. Emotional outburst harms what you value. In other words, you go against your own interests. In contrast, if you cannot control your emotions, they have the potential to cause great harm to you and those around you. Wisdom is being able to control your emotions. Only this way can you gain control over fools. The emotions we call negative, fear, sadness, anger, hatred, do not happen without a wrong judgment. But this doesn't mean they are only wrong judgments. In other words, just logical observations. In fact, whether your actions is to yell insults, give a quick lecture, or complain, they all lead to same results. In the end, stupidity makes you make judgments that lead to a moral lesson or speech. Even in such a simple things, you find the signs of moral lesson. In reality, when a person gives a moral lesson to another person, they try to depend on that person's ability to understand and accept many rules. If a fool accepts that he is a fool, he stops being one by definition. In this sense, the desire to give a fool a moral lesson is an effort to separate fool from his stupidity. In other words, giving advice to a fool is a way to separate him from his own foolishness and to make sure he does not act badly in the future and accept the systems you are trying to protect. But your attitude of giving advice to fools, whether you mean to or not, is a sign of your own helplessness. In short, advice means I cannot make you act the way I want, so I'm telling you your duty is. For example, it shouldn't be like this, not because I said so, but because a being better than me said it. They are not affected at all. It goes in one ear and out the other. You must accept that advice is not a good answer to a real problem. Problem is that the trust between people has been lost. Fools don't want to know what you are trying to show with your logic. So, the lack of trust turns into a fight for power, and that turns into a fight over understanding. In other words, advice simply moves the problem instead of solving it. If the fools can speak, he can talk back and start giving moral lessons in the same way. You wouldn't like to listen to idiots' thoughts, right? Even worse, in their value system, they may find something you find unacceptable to be perfectly normal, and they may see your actions as pointless. The biggest problem a moral talk, moralizing discourse, faces with a fool is the idea that there is a shared ground where we can talk about and judge our behaviors. But unlike children and people we care about, fools have no intention of accepting your values or trying to understand them in order to discuss them. It is impossible to agree with someone who rejects the very idea of setting common rule. This situation leaves everyone feeling helpless. Why don't fools want to compromise or negotiate? Because they don't see any authority in you. So why don't they agree to follow the authority of reason as equals? Because fools don't want you, they don't respect you, and they don't even want to consider that you exist. They don't think about you at all. Their greatest desire is to act as if you never existed. In their eyes, you are nothing. This disaster destroys all efforts to have a conversation. There is no longer any trust or shared desire between you and fool. Talking and finding a middle ground are not possible. Communication between the two worlds has been broken. Also, when you give a moral lesson to a fool, you are speaking a language they do not understand. Give up on language game. They don't want to understand. As a normal person, even if I don't like your voice or if your way of stretching bothers me, we can still listen to each other. But this is different with fools. The fool uses all their power to tear down your system with a counter-current effect, trying to make you give in, to submit. They provoke you, injure you, and insult you. Let's quickly summarize. When a fool appears in your life, they do so with a word or action that shows their stupidity. Your focus moves from the big picture to this one event. When you think about it, you point out that action should not have been done by a human being. So, your moral values are activated and you want to share this. The moral lesson you give is actually call for these thunders to be accepted. But this call is also a cry of helplessness. If someone tries to blame you, the worst thing is to defend yourself, because you are accepting the system the fool is forcing on you. But fools have no system. They do not respect any consistency. Start without judging based on a fool's judgment, or you won't get anywhere, even if the language they use is similar to yours. Let them explain themselves. It's a little off-putting and boring, and you don't want to help at all. However, by listening to their complaints and encouraging them to talk, you reach to unburden themselves, you reach your goal. That is, by building a little trust, you make your life easier. According to this, the moral talk in daily life, the call to duty in everyday life, is mainly a complaint. This complaint is about the loss of trust, and asking the speaker questions is the best way to get that trust back. Let us say the person we are studying is the conceited person, the troublemaker, the jerk, the one we believe we are right against. Know that being right is not a fact, but a claim. Right is a heavy idea, even if people use it easily. More exactly, it's a situation where proof is rare. This claim can appear in three situations, each creating different problems that come from thinking you are in the right. First, a request to put a new plan into action that did not exist before, but fits the facts better. In short, the goal is to get new rights by making new laws. Second, a reminder to someone who openly breaks existing laws that these laws are in place. Here, claim is a call to follow the law. Third, a call to follow a moral duty that no law has ever clearly stated. First, if you think we are right, it's fair for us as citizens to try to bring a real problem into legal system even when the government fights back. You have a voice because you are a part of society. You don't speak for everyone, but you speak as one person in the group. Society keeps building systems and then tearing them down, and those systems also change society. This can leave you feeling stuck, unable to act. Still, it's hard to say everything is fine, because many institutions don't work well. They end up calling on you and even challenging you. The second case looks simple. We say there is a law that bans a certain behavior, and whoever breaks it is punished. When you say, I am right against a pickpocket or a fraudster who drains your bank account, what makes this meaningful is that you have rules of behavior behind you that get their power from the law. And the difference between any rule and a law is that the law has power. In theory, power of the state is no joke. It can take your money, fines, it can control your body, prison, and it says you are guilty to public. As laws increase, the state's ability to get involved in your life grows. This is not a good sign, because the state's power should only be used in cases of absolute need. This trains you to run to the courts instead of trying to other ways to solve problems. You want the state to solve it for you, but this is more risky than the first case. Let's think together. You must accept that most of the time the state does not solve our conflicts, or if it does, price is high. In theory, power of the law is very effective and strong. When fools became criminals and must be stopped, can bring an armed and trained people, and this can be necessary. But in practice, using this power is neither simple nor mechanical. Actually, not at all. Most fools know this and use it to their advantage. The jerk who harasses you surely commit a crime, but to get your rights in court, you must start a process with great effort, and the time it takes is unfair. The existence of this process is needed, but we should not want things to reach that point. Laws, judges, and the police must stay as a barrier against criminals, but we should also have the skills to solve our problems as much much as possible outside the state. The more helpless and abandoned you feel, the more you want the help of something or someone. When this desired power is seen as something outside of you, you have one wish: to feel power on your side by giving into it, to ease the feeling that you lack power. And as everyone knows, that relief is so intense that a strong pleasure comes with giving in. Now let's return to the bad people who break the law right in front of you and make you unsure how to respond. When you take the stance of a rightful person, what do? It's clear. You threaten him with power of the law. In other words, the state getting involved where your words end. Here is an important point. Saying I am right is a threat. It is the threat that the state will get involved first. This threat has one good thing. It moves the power balance from you versus attacker to him versus the state. This puts you, at least in theory, under the state's protection. Sadly, the threat also has a cost. Pushes you into a position of giving in to the law. In short, when a fool breaks existing laws, he puts you in such a hard position as a victim that you threaten him with the state's power. This giving in then weakens you as a social actor, so that your chance of becoming a victim of fools increases. You are surrounded by a cycle of giving in. While the bad people walk all over you, you cry and ask for state help that may never come. Third case. Imagine you want to make a moral judgment about an action that written laws do not ban. For example, being foolish. In this case, neither the facts, first case, nor the laws, second case, are on your side, and you are not asking for a current law bans fools to be used, second case. So, what rights are we talking about? Where does this morality that bans being foolish come from? Maybe you believe that somewhere there is a moral law, an idea, an unwritten rule that applies here. Because morality gives rules and bans things. It is like a law, but without what makes a law real, written cause and power. So morality works like a continuation of law, where law's own frame ends. Without written rules, without giving punishments and rewards. This first thought explains why, in daily life, when you think and say you are morally right, you threaten the fool with a power you don't have and enter a power struggle you cannot actually win. There is a kind of foolishness here. It is as if you give in to the state where the state is not there, so you begin to give into a void. In other words, to moral authority, a non-existent authority. We imagine an invisible power. When we cannot make others accept our view, you push it on them as a moral right, as if we had legal power. In truth, we have no power, yet we still say you must do this. It's like a dream, seen by a thirsty person. It is not real. If you like the video, don't forget to subscribe.